There might be a couple more people coming back in, but bienvenidos y bienvenidas a todos. Buenos días, muy buenos, muy buenos. ¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Están bien?
Está bien.
Sí,
¿Están bien? Está bien. Están bien. Bueno,
está bien, bueno.
aquí en Phoenix es el último día de calor agobiante. It is supposedly the last day of ridiculous heat.
Hopefully.
Knocking on wood. Yeah, hopefully they say we get some monsoon action, maybe starting, but cooler temperatures. So it must be some little front, which oddly our weather all went north to folks in Washington and Oregon and California, and our weather went to them, and maybe we'll get the wet, so we'll see. Vamos a ver. Bueno, vamos a practicar con esas palabras positivas, negativas. We're going to focus on some of these positive and negative words. I'm going to pull up the page that you will need to have ready so you can identify it and get it ready. While we do this, I had sent you this page last week to practice, and this will be something you'll be off in small groups working on, and then we'll compare answers and see how everybody does on it. We've got some translation at the top and then some conversational questions at the bottom. So we'll spend quite a bit of time with that today. That'll be a big part of our conversation practice. And there are a lot of these words that are paired up as affirmative words and negative words. And it's kind of a strange combination of both vocabulary and grammar because you know, the first thing is to know what those words are, but the second thing is that the negative expressions, obviously not their opposite positive, but the negative expressions sometimes might be used as double negatives, sometimes can be used as a single negative by itself, right? And we'll review a little bit before we get into practice what that is. But the focus from last week carrying into this week's practice are on the words nada, nunca or jamás. Nunca, I think a little more common, but jamás is also used for never. Nada, nunca or jamás, nadie, a little bit of tampoco, and we'll have a video on tampoco and también, a special video on that later after we do our practice here, because that causes a little bit of confusion. So whether you pull it up on your screen, which I see that some of you have done, or you have it printed off and need to hunt that down, you've got a couple of minutes to look for that. Okay. So we're going to work a lot on that today. We're going to do a little extra work with the ideas of también and tampoco, those two opposites, and talk about how they are used, because there are some specific little tricks that will help you use them properly so that people understand you always. And we're going to, before the end, hopefully we'll get, I want to start with some introduction with reflexive verbs and what they are and why you'll see them, because you'll start to see them in your little novels. So I want to open with your little novelas. Mi propio auto. Were there any questions that you had from your reading this week? And you'll need to make sure you take yourselves off of mute if you want to speak up and ask a question. Anything on vocabulary or word structure, word order? Cindy's got a question. Dime, Cindy.
I'm trying to figure out why a sentence always will start with a ben. Why does the a have to be there?
With a and what's after the name?
Ben.
Ben. Okay. Bueno. And really, it would help me to see the whole sentence. It is probably because it's something like Ben le gusta, Ben
Le parece.
Le parece. Okay, muy específico. So let's pull that up, because I'm going to pull up a whiteboard to show you that, Cindy. Why does it have to be an haben? Well, that is because haben is giving us a more specific reference to the person we're referring to with the word le. So that particular reference was haben le parece. You know, it seems to Ben. It seems to him. With that verb parece, it seems, we need to use a little pronoun in front of it to say who it seems good, who it seems silly, who it seems fun to. To whom does it seem that way? And parece is, parece can be used in a couple of ways, but when it means seems, something seems a certain way. We always have to have some little pronoun, and here it's le. And because le is very fuzzy, le could mean it seems that way to him, it seems that way to her. It could even be used to say it seems that way to you, if the you was the formal usted, you. We need this little a phrase, and we often lead off the sentence with that a phrase. And then that defines who we mean by le. That we're talking about Ben, not about his mom, not about his dad, not about his girlfriend, but to him it seems this way. So parece is one of those verbs that sometimes can be used like gustar. So I could say something like this, a Ben le parece ridículo que it seems just silly or stupid to Ben, ridiculous that somebody does something. It seems silly that his parents require that he takes this trip to earn that prize of his beloved car, something like that. Does that make a little more sense, Cindy?
Yeah, I just wondered why that was necessary because of the pronoun being there.
You would think with the pronoun there, why do we need to say haben? Because very, very frequently with the word le or with the word les, it is often included an a phrase. And it's called a clarifying phrase when we teach that in a class. It's called a clarifying phrase because it tells you exactly whom we're referring to with that word le. With the word, if the pronoun we were using were me or te or nos, you wouldn't have to use that a phrase, but you might. It's still quite common to hear people saying, a mí me parece, a ti te parece, a nosotros nos parece. It is quite common to hear those a phrases, to either be very emphatic or to just make sure you're very clear about who you're talking to.
Yeah, thank you.
De nada. Okay, buena pregunta, Cindy. Es buena pregunta. That is a really, really great question. Hay más preguntas. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there some kind of question? ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Bueno, okay, Nora.
I wanted to ask a question about one of the videos, the language tutor, about the negations.
Okay, sí,
And
sí.
I'm just going to get my notes up because I listened to it twice to make sure I understood it. He talked about the masculine for plural for ninguna. So he said no tiene ningunos, but then he said it could be the he, she, you formal didn't have any. And I'm going, why is she in there?
This was probably that word ninguno or alguno, that video. Yeah.
Mhm.
I gave you that video because it's a lengthy one, and that is a word that is very, very confusing. Okay, let's pull up the screen again. And that term is, I would say that term of using algún or ningún is a little more confusing than using nada, a little more confusing than using nunca, because you're pairing it up or you're using it to refer to a thing. And so whereas nada does not have gender, nadie does not indicate gender, nunca, never, is talking about how often you do something. So that, yeah, actions can't have gender. También and tampoco, they don't have gender. So out of all of those affirmative camp words and negative camp words, alguno y ninguno are kind of a special category because they will have gender. So whereas nada is always only that form, nada, and it never changes. Nadie always is that same form and does not change. Nunca, you never like change its form. Alguno and ninguno might change form. And the first way they might change is that if alguno and ninguno are used by themselves, that is if they stand alone, if they're not attached or paired up with a noun, then they stay as alguno and ninguno by themselves, okay? Alguno meaning some kind of thing, some amount, and it's vague, some. You know, we don't really know if that means a lot or a few, it's just some, all right? Ninguno means none, or we might say not even one. Or we might say not, you know, not any. Oh, we might say not any. Not any. So you see already where this is starting to get confusing because English uses different terms to plug in where we use this term ninguno. So if it stands by itself, it can be that long form. But alguno and ninguno are two of a very small group of words that sometimes cut off the O. So if I pair alguno or ninguno with a masculine noun, then it's got to slice off that O. It has to be a truncated, shortened form. Okay, so algún, but only if it's the masculine. Only if it's the masculine. Okay, so algún carro. Some car. Somebody's not very particular about which car, just algún carro. But if it's no car at all, like you want to say, there's no car, there are no cars on the street. We would say there are no cars on the street. But you would generally say, no hay ningún carro en la calle. No hay ningún carro en la calle. Whereas we would tend to say there are no cars. Oh, and look, ninguno might mean no, just no. There are no cars, right? In English, we just plug in different combinations depending on what the full sentence is. So, no hay ningún carro en la calle. Because there are no cars at all, ningun's got to be singular, you know? Ningún carro, I got it paired up with that word carro. But if I dropped the word carro, I could just say no hay ninguno, and then that all comes back. So there's the first hurdle we have with this idea of using alguno, ninguno. And the first hurdle is sometimes if I pair it up with an actual noun, if they're right next to each other, and if it's a masculine singular, I've got to truncate, cut off that form and change it to algún with the masculine singular noun, or ningún with the masculine singular noun. But you know, if it stands alone without that word carro, then I can put it back to the full word, ninguno. Now the feminine form does not cut off that vowel ending. So Okay, that's odd. I might ask you guys, ¿tienen alguna pregunta? This is a really common question in a classroom. ¿Tienen alguna pregunta? Do you have some kind of question? Any at all? Okay. And the answer might be, oh, no tengo ninguna. No tengo ninguna. And ninguna or alguna always stays that way. It doesn't shorten like algún or ningún shortens. It doesn't shorten. It would be no tengo ninguna or no tengo ninguna pregunta. Okay, so we've got that. All right, so we've got genders. So therefore we have algún, and it might, if it stands alone, become alguno. We've got alguna, and we've got algunas. Perdón, right? We've got, and we can use algunos. We can use algunos. Okay, and that just indicates some. But for the negative forms, right, the corresponding negative idea, the flip side of the coin, if you will, we've got these words, ningún, ninguno, and ningún when it's paired up with a masculine onesie kind of word. Ninguno, if it stands by itself and it's not paired up with a noun right next to it. If it is very rare to hear this word as a plural. Very rare. Because if you have none, that means you haven't got even this many. And therefore it can't have a plural form. But it can have plural form if what it's talking about is shorts. Because on your shorts, you've got how many legs?
Two.
Yeah, or pantalones, pants, or scissors, tijeras, because scissors is plural. So if the word itself is plural, then you may hear ningunos, but you won't hear ningún, that negative form, in a plural form very often at all. Only in kind of rare situations. So these two words here has a plural, the none, or not one, or not even one, or no. That word, it's rare. If the noun itself is some kind of a plural noun, which isn't, you know, it's like one of those 1%er kind of things, then you might need that ningunos or ningunas word, but hardly ever. It'll usually be one of these by itself, ninguna or ningun or ninguno, usually just in that way. Did that answer your question or not?
I think the confusing part of it is when he was talking about the masculine and he referenced, you would say this with he, she, or the formal you. And I'm going, why is she, why would he say that with a masculine form of it?
I'll have to go back and see what he said about a feminine form and get back to you on that. Because I'm trying to think, he might be talking about you know, I don't recall him putting in the word she. And obviously, if you have the question, he did. So I'm going to go back, listen to that again, and send you an email about that later.
Great, thank you.
But that word itself is an oddball in that category of affirmative and negative expressions, because it carries gender, and most of those other words don't have a gender at all and don't change to different forms, which is why I kind of didn't want to get into that whole ball, because that's a Pandora's box, you know, that opens up, oh, but if you do this, then you do that. So it kind of was worth looking at that whole video, but I'll get back to you on that because I don't recall the exact reference. Okay. I know not very satisfying for now, but I have to get the exact context and then I'll let you know.
Una pregunta.
Nora, sí.
To clarify then, even though you said, are there any cars in the street? And you know that in the conversation, you're referring to the cars, but you would just still say, no hay ninguno.
No hay ningún carro. There's not even one.
Okay,
Okay. And carro is a singular kind of verb. So if there are no cars, we don't even have this many. So that negative word can't go into a plural form
no, but I'm
in
saying
Spanish, but
you wouldn't have to say ningun. You could say ninguno, even
you
though.
could say ninguno
you
if
know
you
you're
take
still
out the
talking.
word carro.
Okay,
No hay ninguno. Hay muchos carros por aquí. Are there a lot of cars around here? No hay ninguno. There's none. There's none.
and
Not
if it's a
even one.
feminine thing, you'd still use ninguno for
Then,
that. too.
well, ninguna for a feminine thing, you know, if I were talking about a feminine thing, yes, then it could be ninguna. So the ningun comes in when I pair it up with the word carro.
Right,
Ningún carro. But if I take out the word carro, because we've been talking about cars, and I don't want to repeat the word cars again, then it goes in, and then I can let that word ninguno with the O hanging on the end stand by itself.
okay.
But
But
it
if we had
stands
been
by
talking
itself.
about a feminine thing,
Talking
then I
about a
would use-
feminine thing, generally a feminine word,
okay,
generally. Okay. Bien? Like if I were talking about butterflies, mariposas. Hay mariposas. No es la temporada de mariposas. It's not butterfly season. No hay ninguna. There's none.
okay,
There's
That's
none
what I was-
around. No hay ninguna. Yeah. So it depends on if the thing you're talking about is a feminine thing or a masculine thing.
okay.
Yeah. Eso es. That's it. So, you know, really, that's a lot to keep in your brain, isn't it? It really
Yeah.
is. Now, if you messed up and you put a wrong gender on, somebody who's listening to you might be slightly confused, but they know you mean none. You'll just, you know. And by the way, there are times when even native speakers might mess up with something like that. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. Don't feel like that's the worst mistake you can make.
Okay,
Don't let it stop your ideas from coming out. Okay, bueno, hay otra pregunta. ¿Hay alguna pregunta más? Any other kind of question on the videos or Duolingo or the book? Si no, okay. Okay, fantástico. Vamos a ver. Let me go into, let's go into our small group practice here. And I'll pull up this screen. So I think because we've got 10, we're going to do 5 and 5. We're going to work on the first 5. Las primeras las primeras 5 frases, the first 5 sentences. And we're looking for words like no one and never and nothing. And yeah, okay. So we're going to work on these 5 first. Depending on how the sentence is phrased, you might want to use a double negative. Okay, so let's just preview a little bit. When I've got special negative words, if I use it as a double negative, the no comes in front of the verb, and then the special negative word follows the verb. Okay, will come afterward the verb. But in many situations, in many cases, I can take that special negative word, and especially with nadie and with nunca, especially there, I can take that special word, and the special negative word, if it's put in front of the verb, can stand alone without having to make it a double negative. But double negatives and triple negatives, and sometimes even quadruple negatives, are common in Spanish, are loved. People like to use them. So Is one more common than the other? No, not really. But if people want to be really emphatic, they may make it a double negative just because that feels very natural to them to do the double negative idea. So you just need to know if you use a special negative word by itself without the double negative, then it's got to be in front of the verb. It's got to take that position in word order, okay? ¿Entienden? Does that all make sense? So there might be more than one way to express these ideas in the first 5, but we will take these and I will send you off into some groups. ¿Cuántos somos 14? Okay. We're going to create some breakout rooms here. Quizás 5. Let's make maybe 5 groups. Let's see how that shakes out. Yes, that works out well. Okay, muy bien. I'm going to give you about, I think, 5 minutes because you had time to think about this ahead of time. 5 minutes to compare your answers. Hit your join button, then we'll come back and see what kind of questions you had. 5 minutos. Y empiezo mi reloj. Empiezo mi reloj con la hora. Con la hora. Start my watch with the time. Muy bien, aquí vienen 3 personas. Got 3 back. We got others coming on in soon. Muy pronto, muy pronto. Aquí vienen todos. Here comes everybody back. Excelente. Zoom puts you on mute when you come out of breakout room back into the big group. So you may need to unmute yourselves. Bueno, vamos a ver. Let's take a look at how we did with that. And again, there may be more than one way we can express these depending on that double negative kind of situation. Okay, nobody knows where it is. ¿Cómo se dice?
Nadie sabe dónde está.
Nadie sabe.
Sabe. Oh, nadie, okay.
Nadie sabe. Now, there's more than one way to do this, right? Nadie sabe dónde está.
¿Dónde
And
está?
we don't need the word where it is. We don't need it.
Okay.
Nobody's going to use the word it.
Can you use nada or not?
No, we can't use nada. Okay, let's see why not. Nada sabe. Nada sabe means knows nothing. Knows
Oh.
nothing. Now, so
No
here's
one,
one of the
okay.
first little hurdles we've got. Nada and nadie are
Nadie.
different just by, those couple little letters at the end. They are really close together in how they sound. They're different only by a couple of letters. Nada, nothing. And it's not a feminine word. It's just nothing. Okay. So there's no like masculine alternative for that word. It's just nada. It's always nada. Same with nadie. It's always nadie, right? You can't have plurals for those. You can't have masculine or feminine. They are just what they are. So nadie is what we use for nobody. But I could choose, instead of saying nadie sabe, I could use to swing nadie behind the verb. And if I do that, then it needs to be a double negative. It would have to
No.
be
No sabe nadie.
no
dónde-
sabe nadie. Sí. ¿Dónde está? And notice one of the odd things with Spanish is when we say where it is, we don't need that word it at all. It will never appear. Never ever will anybody say the word it and say, how do I translate it in Spanish? Está means it is. All right, that's it. That's all you need. We do use the word it, but we use the word it when it's replacing something in a sentence like, hey, are you eating that candy? Yeah, of course I'm eating it. Yeah. Yeah. It in this situation doesn't appear in the sentence at all because we don't need it. That word está means we're talking about a thing and it's a onesie thing. So that's all I need. It's just está. Okay. I never eat meat.
Nunca como carne.
Nunca. Nunca. Ay. Caps. We don't want that. Nunca como carne. Nunca como carne, no como
Carne nunca.
nunca. And nunca is kind of flexible. No como carne nunca, no como nunca carne. Yeah, as long as nunca is following the verb. So,
So you can say no como nunca carne. That's also
sí,
correct.
se puede. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I mean, I naturally do it there. It sounds a little bit better to me there. But when you got a double negative, then, you've got to keep in mind that no is always in front of the verb. But, if I've got nunca up here, well, then if I use it by itself in front and I put it right in front of the verb, it can stand alone. You might, instead of using that word nunca, use jamás. It is okay to use the word jamás. It is an equivalent. Jamás to me always sounds a little more forceful. I don't know why I feel that way. I always hear jamás a little bit more in Spain,
Strong.
a little more, but I don't know. I think nunca is a little more common, but well, whatever word you use, people will understand you. Okay.
Marilyn?
Sí.
Could you also say no como nunca carne, or does the nunca have to come after
You-
carne?
You could, I think it's better when it follows a little after with this,
Come.
because, you know, you got carne, the thing you eat, right away up with the verb. But yeah, you could switch the word order a little bit and still be understood very, very easily. Okay. A ver, nada is one of those things, they do tell you that technically nada could stand alone in front of a verb, but it's kind of rare to hear it that way. You usually hear nada as a double negative. I mean, it can be used by itself, sometimes in very poetic things, poetic expressions, you know, it might come alone. Sometimes, yeah. Well, okay. I'm not buying anything today.
Voy comprar.
No,
Nada hoy.
No
Hoy.
compro
Compro. Nada hoy.
nada hoy.
Can you say
compro-
Mm.
No compro nada hoy, and nada should be right there. Nada and hoy should not switch place. You shouldn't say no compro hoy nada. I mean, you'd be understood, but it sounds a little odd. No compro nada hoy. No compro nada. No
But it
compro
also-
nada hoy.
Could it also be no estoy comprando nada hoy?
Ah,
that's what I said, yeah.
No estoy comprando nada hoy. You could, and remember this, estoy comprando is fine when you are saying this and you're doing it in the moment.
Ah.
Like you're standing in the store. You're standing in the store
Okay.
and somebody calls you and you say, oh, I didn't find a single thing in this store today. There's nothing that I like. I'm not picking anything up. No estoy comprando nada hoy. Sure, you can. But again, estoy comprando will mean it's happening in the moment while I'm talking. You know, if, you know, and that really is dependent on the situation, knowing the context of when it's happening. Okay. And okay, the next one there, número cuatro. You should know that work is to work you learned as trabajar, right? But trabajar is doing like some person, human being, doing physical work. That's trabajar. If I'm talking about my headphones work a certain way, right? Or, oh, I know you can use this plug. This is good for, you can recharge with this because it works. Now we're not talking about a person anymore. And we have to use a different verb generally when we talk about a machine working, okay? So if I say nothing works, it's,
Nada funciona.
I can just say nada funciona. And it's funciona, sí, en mi
Habitación de hotel.
En mi
en mi
hotel.
habitación, en mi habitación,
En mi hotel.
del hotel, en mi cuarto del hotel. You know, there are different words for hotel that you can use for room with a hotel. Cuarto, habitación, yeah. Nada funciona. Or double negative, it might be no funciona nada en la habitación, ¿sí? Bien, en mi habitación,
Can
bien.
you just say en mi hotel? No?
You could say en mi hotel, yeah, you could, but you know, it might be that you want to be specific. Oh, it's in my room, yeah, not in the whole, you know, if the electricity goes out in the whole hotel,
Right.
todo el hotel, then that is a good way to do it. But you know, you might want to be specific, maybe something is just out in your room. Okay.
Didn't you just tell us that nada doesn't usually go first like that?
Not usually, but here, how do I even explain this?
It's more like the
You'll see in the
subject,
next one.
right?
You'll see in it's the subject. Yeah, it's because nothing is the subject.
Okay.
It's Yes, it's because nothing is the subject. And when nothing is
That
the
makes sense.
object,
Didn't put it.
then you're going to have usually a double negative. So that's what we're going to see in número 5. There isn't anything in my bag. No,
Nada
Ay,
no hay nada
en mi bolsa.
en mi bolsa. En mi bolsa. And that might be expressed as bolso if it's, you know, a purse type thing versus, yeah. Okay. No hay nada. There, it's almost always going to be expressed as a double negative. You won't frequently hear people phrasing that as a single of nada hay. No, not usually. I mean, it's technically, grammatically okay, but people just don't say it that way. No hay nada. There's nothing. No hay
What about
nada.
ningun there?
Ooh.
Because
Only if you're talking about a specific thing.
okay.
Por ejemplo, so for example, and I was ready with this. You want to say, oh, cartera, a wallet, yeah? Oh, no hay ninguna, because cartera is a feminine thing. Oh, no hay ninguna en mi bolsa, no hay ninguna en mi bolsa, there's none. No hay ninguna. There isn't one in there. Por ejemplo, and now I'm going to show you where this plural might happen. Somebody asks you, because you're going to the beach. Tienes, is this a singular word or a plural word?
Plural.
Yeah.
It just is. And people might use this as lentes, los lentes. In Latin America, los lentes de sol, sunglasses. Or in Spain, las gafas de sol. Why do they have two completely unrelated words for sunglasses? I don't know, but los lentes de sol or las gafas de sol. You might hear it expressed either way. ¿Tienes lentes de sol en la bolsa? And now if I want to say, no, I've got none.
No tengo.
No hay ningunos. Now it's got to be no. Now, oh, this is like the pants word, glasses. No hay ningunos, no hay ningunos, no hay ningunos en el bolso, no hay ningunos.
Okay.
Then I can say that because I'm referring to a special item. But
Okay.
if I want to say this thing is completely empty, then it's no hay nada.
Okay. Makes
No hay
sense.
nada, right? You know, like ladies change purses and they put everything from one purse because they're using a different color or something. And yeah, no hay nada en el bolso. No hay nada en la bolsa. Bien. Yeah, that's how that one works. Buena pregunta. Okay. ¿Hay más o no?
No.
No. Okay. We're going to take a look at the last 5 números, número 6 hasta 10. I don't like to fly either. There isn't anyone in the hotel lobby. We never travel by bus. He never works when he's on vacation. Oh, when he's on vacation. And you want to use estar de in that case. I'm going to give you that little prompt. And oh, I don't have a credit card either. So we've got some special words there to work on. We're going to go back into groups and see if you got these right. Vamos a ver. Aquí vamos. 5 minutos. 5 minutes. I'm going to set my timer. Mi reloj.
Look at focus.
And you'll have to hit your join button. There you go.
Foco.
Gonna go.
Do you
Good.
have a, oh, there you go. Fantastico. Everybody off into their rooms. Ok, esperamos a 10 más. We're waiting on 10 more folks to come in. They still got a little bit of time, so. Oh, yep, they still got about 15 seconds. They'll be in soon. 15
We had-
segundos.
We had remarkably similar answers, so that was,
Ah, okay. Vale, muy bien. And we're gonna work the tampoco and también thing a little bit more beyond this, because again, that's kind of an oddball one. Okay, magnifico. And please remember, if you've got a question that puts you on mute coming out of the break room back into the big room, so you might need to take yourself off of mute. Oh, you want to tell somebody, I don't like to fly either. I don't like to fly either. And we're going to talk about this either or either word in a little bit. I don't like,
No me gusta.
No me gusta.
no me gusta. No me gusta
Volar.
volar, volar. Sí,
Volar.
no me gusta volar
Tampoco.
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 No me gusta volar tampoco. I can't put tampoco right up front. I
Oh.
can put it right up front. So I can say, tampoco me gusta volar. Bien? Tampoco me gusta volar. I can do
Oh.
that. So again, it's got to be in front of that phrase that says me gusta. It can't be me tampoco. I know. Oh, wait a minute. Isn't gusta really the verb? Yeah, but it's tampoco me gusta. Tampoco me gusta. Me gusta has to hang together like spit. Okay, it's got to hang together there. So tampoco me gusta or no me gusta volar tampoco, or no me gusta tampoco volar. Tampoco is kind of flexible where it can be. Okay, there isn't anyone in the hotel.
No hay nadie
No hay nadie.
en el lobby.
En-
El
oh,
lobby.
el lobby, and will be la recepción.
Oh.
En la recepción. And usually you can just let it be there. En la recepción. You could say la recepción del hotel. You can, but recepción can usually kind of just stand by itself. No hay nadie. Or maybe you express it as nadie está. Instead of I, maybe nadie está en la recepción. That gets the same idea across using a different verb instead of I. Nadie está en la recepción is perfectly okay because it gets that same idea across, just using está instead of I. No está nadie en la recepción. Okay, so any of those ideas work with that. You know, an exact translation there isn't. Okay, it should be no hay nadie. But nadie está or no está nadie, that also works because it's using the location verb, right? Está. We never travel by bus.
Nunca viajamos
Nunca viajamos.
en autobús. En
Por
autobús.
por autobús. Some people might say it as
En.
en autobús. Oops. Some might say it as en, but por is by bus. So I prefer that. So, nunca viajamos or no viajamos nunca.
Nunca.
Bien, sí. No viajamos nunca. If you use it as a double negative, that's where it will go. He never works when he's on vacation.
Nunca trabaja.
Nunca trabaja.
Cuando está de vacación.
Cuando está de vacaciones. And vacación is always plural. It just is. Vacaciones. Yeah. Estar de vacaciones, to be on vacation. Estar de vacaciones. No trabaja, no trabaja. no, or no trabaja nunca, if you got it as a double negative. No
No
trabaja
trabaja.
nunca. Cuando está, cuando está de vacaciones. Okay.
Marilyn,
Sí, sí. Dime.
could you say en vacaciones, or does it have to be de?
It's always de. It just is. They don't use en. I don't know why, but they don't. Yeah, en vacaciones no, but de vacaciones, sí. De vaca and this, you know, that's one of those little preposition things. It just is that way. So, estar de vacaciones, to be on vacation. Oh, I don't have a credit card either.
No tengo tarjeta de crédito.
No tengo tarjeta
De crédito.
de crédito.
Tampoco.
Tampoco. Okay. You can swing tampoco off in front. Tampoco tengo tarjeta de crédito. See, so double negative this way, right? And by itself, if it stands alone, it's got to be in front of the verb. Okay, so we've got singular, you know, when we have the special negative word standing alone, it will look like that right in front of the verb. When I use a double negative, it'll be, of course, double negative with no in front of the verb first, and then your special word afterwards. Bien, vamos. Okay. ¿Alguna pregunta? Any question?
Sí.
Yeah, dime, sí.
If you were to say tampoco and no tengo tarjeta de crédito, would that be in the double negative in Spanish, or would that just be viewed as being okay?
Oh, wait, I'm otra vez, one more time.
If you said tampoco no tengo, in other words, you put in another no before the verb.
Oh, I see. Generally not needed. Would you confuse anybody? I don't think really. I mean, would they understand you? Yes.
Okay.
But double negative is usually, you know, with you don't need that extra no as a general, you know, if you've already got the tampoco up front. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Gracias.
Okay.
We'll make so many mistakes, Jeff. Who cares?
Well, you know, the thing is, there are mistakes that throw people off, and then there are mistakes that might just sound a little off, but they're not bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they'll still know what you mean. And people who are speaking English as a second language often have the same kind of issues, and it's usually related to word order and, you know, all that kind of thing that can be kind of tricky, where, you know, all you can really tell somebody is, well, we don't say it that way. The word order is a little different, and it's the same thing in any other language. Okay. Bien. Vale. And we're going to have, yeah, special little video on también and tampoco in a bit. Okay. Bien. Preguntas. Oh, okay.
No, I'm just the next one here on this 5 last question. Yes, on you know, the last one here. I'm still confused, like what to do, because first of all, I missed 3 weeks off, so that's okay. You know, with my mushy brain, as I told Cindy about it, that I've been off for 3 weeks, so I cannot figure it out yet. Like, do I need to do like this double double negative, or just single, or what should I do with this? So I have no clue.
Okay. So let's take a look at what the questions mean. So these, a lot of time, and what I want you to do is answer, and I've used all the affirmative expressions in the question.
Okay.
But I want you to answer with a negative expression, and answer with a negative that is the flip side, the opposite of that positive. So, and we didn't talk about this aspect of it very much. So this is the first time, you know, Algo has something, has as its opposite, nada, right? So we're using nada in the answer. Algos, the opposite of algo, the flip side, they're like essentially two sides of the coin. Yeah, right? One's a positive, one's a negative. We're like, I should have batteries here. You know, one's a negative and one side is positive, right? So algo means something, meaning, well, yep, something exists. Nada means nothing. That thing is not around at all, right? There is no object or person or thing, or well, object, right? Siempre talks about time, always. So its negative opposite is
nunca.
Nunca, or if you wanted to use jamás, you could use jamás, right? Alguien means somebody.
Oh, so
somebody. We need nadie as the opposite. And notice a lot of these start with an al. Algo, something. Alguien, somebody, someone. So that ALG is a common affirmative kind of word, common, but not in all of them, as you can see. So alguien, the negative opposite will be nadie. También, also, or to, TOO, has as its opposite
Tampoco.
Right, tampoco. Okay, so Tom and Tom, they kind of match up, but they have different endings. También, tampoco. And we'll have a special video for that in a minute. And then alguien, again, we want the opposite, nadie. Bien? Okay. Magnifico. Does that clear up your question there, Juanita?
Yes.
Oh, okay, fantastico.
Gracias.
Okay, I'm gonna let you practice that a little bit. Again, about 5 minutes, because you may use double negatives, you may not use double negatives. Kind of depends on the situation, right? Y 5 minutos. Oh, Dorothy. Oh, there you go.
My connection's been very strange today. It keeps going in and out.
Oh, dear. Do you want to practice with me, Dorothy?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay, magnifico. If I ask you, ¿quieres tomar algo? ¿Quieres tomar algo?
I just have to be able to read my handwriting. But I did say, ¿quieres tomar algo? No quiero tomar nada.
Perfecto. No quiero tomar nada. No quiero tomar nada. It would not be very common for people to say nada quiero tomar, nada. It sounds very like poetic, kind of odd. No quiero tomar nada. That'll usually be a double negative. Okay. Siempre tomas el metro al centro. Do you always take the subway downtown?
I said, no tomo nunca el metro centro.
Exacto.
Oh, good. I'm doing better than I thought.
Perfecta. Okay, fantástico. ¿Alguien te ayuda en el banco? Is somebody helping you in the bank?
No me ayuda nadie en el banco.
Exacto. No me ayuda nadie. And that ayuda stays ayuda because nobody is helping. I can't make it ayudo because I'm not the one helping. Somebody's supposed to be helping me. And the verb we use with nadie is always the singular form because it's not any one person. So it's a singular verb. Nadie me ayuda or no me ayuda nadie. Okay. También entiendes japonés. Do you understand Japanese too?
Wasn't sure about this. I said, no entiendo japonés tampoco.
Perfecto.
Tampoco is a very strange word.
Tampoco is a strange word. There is a special video for tampoco. I am hoping to show it, but I've got to look at the length of it to see. Yeah. So tampoco is one of those that sometimes, quite often, that will just be the response by itself. And they'll explain why. You know, sometimes we attach these words. Okay, so for example, like that first question, ¿Quieres tomar algo? Somebody might just say, respond just with the nothing word. Oh, nada, gracias. Nada, gracias, right? Just like
Right,
in English, sometimes we just say nothing. Okay, but we show you how to cobble it all together when it's in a full sentence with these answers. But we'll come back and kind of define that for the whole.
Right, now for number 4, I also had a question saying, or an answer saying, no nunca entiendo japonés. Does that make sense?
Probably not.
Okay,
Because would you say in English, I never understand Japanese?
right, okay.
You would either say, I understand Japanese or I don't. And the también and tampoco kind of have a special reason for why we use them. And
Okay.
we talk about that in the videos. That's like an extra bit of information. So no, nunca, well, I never understand. Well, you either do understand Japanese or you don't.
Right.
Yeah, because, but you know, if you're talking about how many languages you speak, and somebody says, "Oh, do you speak this language too?" Oh, no, no, not that one.
Okay.
Okay. ¿Alguien tiene un mapa de la ciudad?
No, I said, no, nadie tiene un mapa de la ciudad.
Nadie tiene. And
Nadie tiene.
Nadie tiene un mapa de
Now, do I have to say no first? Because I said no, nadie. Or could you just say nadie?
Well, you could say no, pause, right? No, nadie. No, nadie tiene. No, nobody's got it. Or you just nadie tiene, right? You might tag on an extra no. You might tag on an extra no, but it's that idea of no, comma. Oh, no, nadie tiene.
And could you put at the end of it tampoco? No, nadie tiene un mapa de la ciudad tampoco? Either?
You could tag that on as extra information.
Right.
You could.
But it's not necessary.
Not necessary, but...
Depending on the question, I guess, and the situation.
Yeah, depending on the situation, somebody could throw that in.
Right.
And you'll see why. That little extra video does tell us why that happens.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, that will be worth us taking a look at when we're done with this.
So I understood it better than I thought I did.
You surely did.
All right.
Hiciste muy bien. You did really, really
good.
well.
Thank you for your help.
And well, I didn't have to help you all that much. I was like the fifth wheel. Third wheel, depending on which vehicle you're talking about.
There you go.
Yeah. Fantastico. Okay, we've got people coming on back, and I'm going to bring up two little extra screens when we're done. And remember that it puts you into mute mode automatically when you come back out. So if you need to take yourself off of mute to say something, please go ahead and do that. Okay. ¿Quieres tomar algo? And if you're saying, I don't want anything, it's just.
No quiero tomar
Nada.
No quiero tomar
nada.
nada. No quiero tomar nada. No quiero tomar nada. No quiero tomar nada. That's almost always going to be a double negative. It is very, very odd and unusual to say nada quiero tomar. Grammatically, it's correct, but nobody says it that way. Okay.
Pregunta, Marilyn?
Sí.
Could you also just say, no quiero tomar nada? Where you put?
Yeah, can you put extra no's in there? Like no, comma. No quiero tomar nada. Yes. Sí se puede, sí se puede. It is very, very common to hear that as well. So in other words, you're saying no as the opposite of sí, quiero tomar algo, right? That first no is the opposite of sí. No quiero tomar nada. You've got a triple negative. Yay, they love that. No, I don't want to have nothing. No, I don't want to have nothing. That's, yeah, but it's okay. Triple negatives, quadruple, the more negative you make it, they're good with that. They really are. They're good with that. And, you know, sometimes if somebody is being really like, oh, no, you know, like they just feel that way.
Make it quadruple.
Yeah, they
Nora.
pile up the nose. It is okay to do that. You can't do that in English, but you can in Spanish. La segunda pregunta, ¿siempre tomas el metro?
Nunca.
Nunca tomo el metro. Nunca
Ah.
tomo el metro. Or no tomo,
tomo.
nunca el metro, right? So you can make that a double negative or a single negative, no importa. But we have the opposite of siempre, nunca. Okay? ¿Alguien te ayuda? Is somebody helping you?
Nadie me
Nadie.
ayuda.
Nadie. We can't use nada because nada is nothing, referring to things. Nadie me ayuda. Nadie me ayuda or no me ayuda. Nadie. So I can say that as a double negative. No me ayuda nadie, right? Or nadie me ayuda. And notice when we talk about nobody helping, that verb is conjugated for the not any one person. So it's ayuda, singular, right? The kind of verb you pair up with nadie when nadie is doing the action, right, is a singular verb, ayuda. The same verb you would use if it were él or ella or usted. Okay.
Pregunta, Marilyn?
Sí, dime.
I'm sorry, I found this other translation and for number 3, and I was wondering if it was correct. Nadie me está ayudando en el banco.
Okay. Again, if you're in the moment, right, and it's going on right now, because you're standing in the bank and somebody walks up to you, you can, because this está ayudando means it's happening while we're talking. And this could, sure, somebody was sitting way in the back room, might walk up to you. And it would be okay to say, no me está ayudando nadie. Or nadie me está ayudando, right? You're talking to the bank employee right now because they want to know what's going on. Sure, you could put it in this. Again, this is called a present progressive because it means in progress. While we're talking, this is going on. Okay. Sí, se puede. Yes, you can. Okay. ¿También entiendes japonés?
Honest.
Entiendo japonés.
No entiendo. No entiendo
Japonés.
japonés. Tampoco. Tampoco. Or tampoco
entiendo
japonés.
Japonés.
Sí, exacto.
Okay.
So double negative, and we're going to shortly look at this structure of tampoco and también a little bit extra because it's kind of, again, one of those oddball things. And you see why this takes a while to get used to. Okay, because there is a kind of a special context with tampoco and también. Okay, ¿alguien tiene un mapa de la ciudad? Somebody got a map?
Nadie.
Nadie tiene. That tiene verb has to be singular. Nadie tiene un mapa. Nadie tiene un mapa. Or no tiene nadie un mapa. Okay, so we got a double negative way you can say it. You've got a singular negative way you can say it. And there we go. Sí, dime.
Could you also say no tengo un mapa?
If you're talking about yourself, see. If you're talking, this would, this might be you walk up to a group of people. You don't have a map yourself, and you wonder if somebody in this group has a map that they can help you with, right? There are three guys standing around together. Alguien tiene un mapa. Somebody got a map, right? Or maybe you walk up to the reception. There are three people in the reception desk, right? Yeah. Alguien tiene un mapa. Somebody got a map back there at the reception desk that they can loan me. That kind of thing. Yeah. But you could just say, no tengo un mapa. Yeah, I don't have one.
Right.
Sí, sí se puede. Okay. Bien. ¿Entienden? Make sense? Okay. Now, an extra thing, and I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself because I'm going to be running close on time. And I'm getting. Sí, dime, Jeff.
Can you fit in the word into these ningún or ningunos if you're talking about people, like not one person or something like along those lines?
Oh, like for this last example?
Yeah, for this last group where you're saying, nobody's helping me in the bank. Can the word ningún or ninguno somehow
Only if you
work in
say
there?
something like ninguna persona, no person at all. Ninguna, but that wouldn't be real common. If you're talking about people, usually it winds up being nadie.
Okay.
That's usually the default term for no human being, right? But, for example, ningún, I'll give you an example, Jeff. Here's one thing. Ningún empleado, no employee.
Okay.
I want to say no employee standing here is coming up to help me. Ningún empleado.
Okay, so it's always going to be hooked up with a noun.
Usually, yeah, it'll be hooked up with a noun, something that is like a specific noun. Okay, yeah, and usually the default for nobody is just nadie, but. Okay. See, there are always little exceptions where, well, in this context, yeah, it could be possible. Es buena pregunta. That is a good question, actually. Very good question. Okay. A ver, I am going to preview for you that I'll probably send you off with a video to watch about reflexives, but I'm going to give a simple explanation before we start on that. But I do want to, wow, you know what? And maybe I need to do that. Here's what I'm going to show you. Actually, and since we've got an extra week, this works out okay. I'm going to show you. There is a bit of information. I was going to play this, but I'm looking at this in an 8-minute video. So, it's kind of long. Sometimes these affirmative or negative words, we might use just by themselves and cut off all the rest of the sentence, Alguien tiene un mapa. Nadie, nobody. No, nadie. Instead of having the whole sentence, people might just really make their communication short and might use some of these negative words by themselves. Oh, no, nadie, nobody. Nada. ¿Quieres tomar algo? Do you want to drink something? Nada, gracias. Nothing, thanks. So just be aware, sometimes these little special negative words like nada might be used by themselves instead of putting it in a whole sentence. And that's okay, because we do that in English too. Do you want something? Nothing, thanks. Nada, gracias. So, you might just grab those negative words and use them solo by themselves without a whole big long sentence. It's possible. It's very possible and very common. And we do the same thing in English. So you might hear nunca by itself. You might hear nadie by itself. You might hear, nada, gracias, nothing, thanks, by itself, right? It is very, very possible that might happen. However, what I'm going to send you off with as part of your homework, and since we've got an extra week off because of the 4th of July holiday, this little video is going to talk about this kind of little more special case of también and tampoco. And it's a good 8.5 minutes. So, and you're probably going to need to pause it a few times. I'm going to tell you that ahead of time. Sometimes you hear yo también used by itself, or a mí también used by itself, or yo tampoco, the opposite word, or a mí tampoco by itself. And you'll notice with the también and the tampoco, we've got one situation where we have yo también or a mí también. Yo tampoco or a mí tampoco. When people shorten their communication and use these words alone, you might hear it used this way. They're going to show you when and how that happens. And you may need to take a couple of notes. So be prepared to stop that video. As a matter of fact, I've got 2 videos on this topic of también also and tampoco, either, neither, either, neither, however you express that. Or in English, we'll say not me either. So again, we have many, many things we say in English for this. So I'm going to send you off to watch that video for sure. And I'm going to have a second one kind of piggyback on top of that. They're just going to show you that with verbs like gustar, with gustar, or verbs like gustar, it might be a mí tampoco. Or a mí también. So you're going to get that little extra bit of information that will help you to use it properly. And we'll come back and practice it next week. So you'll get a couple of videos on that. And I'm going to start off with a little explanation of reflexives. Many times, you know, you've already had a lot of situations where, like Cindy had that question of a ben le parece. You hear that le used a lot. You hear le used a lot to mean something is being done to somebody. So that little pronoun le is pretty common. That little pronoun les is common. Like le digo, I tell him. Le digo, I tell her. Les digo, I tell them. Le or les. It's a common pronoun. But a lot of times we have yet another nasty, confusing pronoun, and this one is truly confusing, se, that comes up. And you will hear se used, I kid you not, about this, I don't know, maybe this many different ways. Se can mean a lot of things. We're going to look at one common use of se, and we're going to use it. We're going to introduce it as how it was used for the idea of ¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo se llama usted? This kind of use of se. And this kind of se is what they call a reflexive verb. Reflexive verbs in Spanish are a special category of verbs, of course. Claro. Certain verbs just are reflexive. And we're going to look at a category of verbs that generally talk about a person who does an action, and the result of that action, they also receive the action. The person who is the subject does the action and also receives the action. And that is why it is called reflexive. Okay. We have a kind of lame, not very helpful comparison with that in English. And sometimes we have no comparison at all with it in English. But when you look up the verb in a dictionary, like you look up the verb llamar. Llamar means to call, right? Like on the phone or hey, you, right? Llamar, call. But llamarse means to call oneself. So when you say my name is, it's literally, I call myself. That's not a natural thing for us to say in English. Nobody walks up to somebody and says, I call myself John. What's your name? Nobody says it that. We just don't phrase it that way, but they do frequently phrase it that way. So when you look it up in the dictionary, it'll be called not just llamar, but llamarse. And they'll tag the little se on the end. And when you see a little se tagged onto, attached to the end of the verb, like a little caboose on the end of the verb, that means, aha, it's reflexive, meaning you need an extra little pronoun with that verb to make it work. Okay, and I'm going to show you the difference here with this set of slides, and I'll send you the whole link to this. So, llamarse means to call oneself versus llamar meaning just call somebody on the phone. Okay, yeah, and that verb exists in two different camps, right? I call a different human being, or I call myself. Okay, but here are some other verbs that wind up being either reflexive or not, and how they differ in meaning. Despertarse means to just wake up. I myself, I wake up. And a lot of these have to do with routines that happen every day. Not all of them, but a lot. Despertar just means to wake, like to wake someone else. Like, okay, so this first one is despertarse, to wake up. I myself just wake up, but the kid wakes dad up. You do this to somebody else. Then it's despertar without the se hanging on the end. Okay, like levantarse, literally to lift yourself up out of a spot. And we don't say lift yourself up, we say get up. If you take get in isolation, it means like about 50 different things in English. Get mad, get up, get going, get a job, get money. Do you get it? Get is a horrible word in English. It's got a bunch of different things. See, Nora?
Do you do this to say then, yo say levantar?
Well, we're
levantar?
gonna look at it. We're gonna look at it. Sometimes we use say, but sometimes we use other pronouns. So we're gonna show you that.
But you don't leave the say on the end. In
No,
the sentence.
the say on the end tells you that in its infinitive form,
Okay,
it is a reflexive verb.
I got you.
Okay. So levantarse means to get up out of a laying down or sitting down position.
Got
Get
you.
up out of bed, get up out of chair. Okay. But levantar by itself means to lift something. But see, again, in English, you don't say, I lift myself up out of the chair. Nobody says that. We just say, get up. But levantar really by itself means to lift, to raise something into the air. Okay, or up off the ground. Okay, ducharse is, I don't have a non-reflexive because this is it. Ducharse is to take a shower, to wash yourself off in the shower. Okay. Bañar exists as both reflexive and not reflexive. Reflexive, bañarse, to take a bath. I get in the tub and I bathe myself. But if I put a baby in the bathtub, it's just bañar without the se. Okay? Lavarse means to wash a part of your body. I'm doing it and I'm doing it to a part of my body. But lavar can be used by itself without the se, meaning you wash something. You wash the car, you wash clothes, you wash the dishes. That's just lavar. But if I wash my face, it's lavarse. Okay. Vestir, to get dressed. But maybe a toddler doesn't know how to button his own shirt. Vestirse is get dressed. Vestir, to dress somebody. Ponerse is to put on clothes. Poner is just to put something in a place. Arreglarse is to get ready. These are all kind of related, yeah? Arreglar means to fix something. Okay, So before I get too far, because it's going to get a little too late, and I'm going to show you the difference. Let's go back up to what you already know, which is reflexive versus not. Okay. The difference in reflexive versus not is that with a reflexive verb, I need, you know how we drilled this into you. Don't bother to use yo, don't bother to use tú, don't bother to use nosotros, don't bother with all that. But I have to bother with these little pronouns if it's reflexive. So it must be me with llamo. I must have a me in front of the llamo to say my name is. Reflexive forms, any verb that is reflexive can't exist just by the verb by itself. It has to have the little reflexive pronoun in front of it. So I'm going to show you what those little pronouns are. Me llamo. If it's we, it'll be nos llamamos. If it's a tú form, it'll be te llamas. Whoops. And this one is Spain only, so don't bother with vosotros unless you're going in Spain. Now, here's the really odd one. Se, for él or ella or usted. The pronoun will have to be se. And that goes back to the se that is in the infinitive form tagged onto the end. So notice, llamarse is just the infinitive, but we swing that se off the end and we bring it up front once we conjugate it, right? Se llama, and the ellos, ellas, ustedes still uses se, but with the plural verb ending, se llaman. So these little, when the verb is reflexive, it must have one of these little pronouns in front of the verb to make it have that reflexive meaning. Me llamo, not just llamo. Te llamas, not just llamas. Se llama, not just llama. Nos llamamos, not just llamamos. Se llaman, not just llaman. That little me, te, nos, or se has to be there if the verb is reflexive. We cannot skip this kind of pronoun. It is there to say, hello, I'm a reflexive verb. I'm the kind of verb where the person doing the action also receives the action. And the little pronoun will be in the corresponding form with the verb. So your verb, llamo, must get a me pronoun. Tu verb, llamas, must get the little pronoun te. And él, ella, usted verb, llama, must get the pronoun se. A nosotros verb, llamamos, must get the corresponding pronoun nos. And llaman and ellos and ellas and ustedes verb must get that se pronoun. So in other words, the pronoun matches up with the kind of verb, right? Because the person doing the action also receives it. So they're in kind of simpatico. We like each other. We're in similar forms. You see what I'm saying with that? Okay. So when you hear these used, it's a signal to you. This is the special category of verbs that are reflexive. So our focus next week is going to be more vocabulary than grammar. It will be more of what kinds of verbs are typically reflexive and what do they mean. And a lot of these are going to focus around what you do in a typical day as a part of your routine. Okay, so our first step is going to be much more vocabulary focused. What kinds of verbs happen to be in this category? Make sense? Mm-hmm. See? And then we'll tippy toe, into how to actually use those. Okay. Bien?
Bien.
Vale? Okay.
Just a reminder, it's 2 weeks, right, Marilyn?
It is 2 weeks. So the reminder is that we do not have class
On the
Monday because of the Independence Day holiday. So you're going to get some extra videos, and I'm going to throw in, I think, maybe 2 extra storytelling videos that are going to combine lots of elements of things you've heard in spring and summer, all rolled up together. Just different little elements here and there. That's what you're noticing. I've got one picked out for sure. I'm looking for a second one. And so they are kind of the little storytelling videos I'll put into the email as here are, we're telling stories, and they're not designed to be like one grammar lesson. They are just pulling together all different elements into a little short story. Super easy, super simple to comprehend. Okay, and then talk slowly. Okay.
That's good.
Fantástico. Ok, vale. ¿Hay alguna pregunta antes de terminar la lección? Any kind of question before we finish up lesson today?
No.
Nada, no. I'm
gracias.
sorry I won't see you Monday, but I'm sure some people will be out doing fun things for the holiday. And
What does hasta luego
Hasta
literally
luego.
mean?
Until later.
Oh, okay.
Hasta luego. Until later. Nos vemos el 12 de julio. Wow, I see you guys on the 12th of July. That feels weird to tell you that. Nos vemos el 12 de julio. ¿Cómo es posible? How is that even possible? Pero es así, but it is that way. Okay. Está bien? So if you've got questions in between, definitely send me an email with any questions you wind up in between, since we got a long leg there. ¿Sí? Está bien.
Gracias.
De nada.
Gracias.
Nos vemos el 12. Y buen día de independencia. Have a good 4th of July holiday.
Happy July
Gracias.
4th.